Just imagine hearing those words. I'm going to die. We've decided. That's one of the last things Jennifer Gibbons ever said. And with that one sentence, a medical mystery turns into something else entirely, a chilling psychological puzzle.
So today, we're diving into the incredibly strange and tragic world of June and Jennifer Gibbons. We're talking about a pair of twins who were so intertwined, they built their own private universe. But the tragic part? They eventually realized that universe only had room for one of them. Okay, let's set the scene. The date is March 9th, 1993. For June and Jennifer, this was supposed to be it, the big day, Liberation Day. After over a decade locked away, they were finally getting out. But instead of freedom, something went horribly, horribly wrong.
And what's so wild is how fast it all happened. I mean, think about it. After 11 years in a high-security psychiatric hospital, they're on their way to a new clinic, a place with way more freedom. And on that ride, Jennifer just gets sick. She rests her head on June's shoulder, and by the time they get to their destination, she's totally unresponsive. A few hours later, she was gone. She was only 29 years old. This was supposed to be a brand new start for her, a whole new chapter. And instead, it was the end, abrupt, and completely inexplicable.
So the doctors, they do their thing, and the official report comes back. The cause of death? Acute myocarditis. It's a fancy term for a sudden, really severe inflammation of the heart muscle. So medically, case closed, right? Well, not even close. This answer actually just makes the whole thing even weirder.
Because here's the kicker. The autopsy? It was a total dead end. Pathologists looked for everything. Drugs, poison, some kind of weird virus, anything that could cause a healthy heart to just stop. And they found nothing. Zilch. Nada. From a medical perspective, it made zero sense. So what really happened? To figure that out, we have to stop looking at her body and start looking at her life.
You see, June and Jennifer's story, their silence, it didn't come out of nowhere. They didn't just wake up one morning and decide not to talk. No, they were pushed into it, pushed by a world that, to them, felt constantly, relentlessly hostile. It really all starts with them feeling like they never belonged. Their parents came to Britain from Barbados, part of what's known as the Windrush generation. Their dad was in the Royal Air Force, which meant the family was always moving. And in these small Welsh towns, they were almost always the only Black family. They were outsiders from day one. And because of that, they faced this just awful, relentless bullying, both for their race and because the other kids just thought they were weird. So how do you respond to that kind of trauma as a kid? Well, they built a wall of silence. By the time they were just 8 years old, they made a pact. They would not speak to anyone in the outside world. Not their parents, not their other siblings, not their teachers. The only people they would talk to were each other. But here's the thing. Behind that wall of silence, it wasn't empty. Far from it. They had this incredibly rich, complex, and honestly really turbulent private world going on. It's like they weren't silent at all. They had just moved their entire lives inside, away from everyone else. There's this amazing story where a speech therapist, trying to figure out what was going on, left a tape recorder running in their room. And what she found was incredible. When they were alone, the twins talked constantly. This proved their silence wasn't physical. It was a fortress they had built. Now, the media at the time, they ran with this idea that the twins had invented their own secret language, this magical twin thing. But that wasn't what was happening here. The reality was something much more clinical. It was selective mutism. That's a severe anxiety disorder that literally makes it psychologically impossible to speak in certain social situations. It's not really a choice in the moment, it's a symptom of deep, deep trauma. And in fact, June herself later set the record straight. She said it wasn't some secret language, it was just English, but it was spoken so fast with pretty severe speech impediments and mixed with their Bajan dialect that to anyone else, even their own family, it just sounded like gibberish.
So this bond they had, it was everything. It was their sanctuary, their safe space. But at the same time, it was also their prison. It was this relationship of total, absolute dependence, but it was also filled with this intense, sometimes violent conflict.
I mean, the way they behaved was just a bundle of contradictions. They would move in this perfectly synchronized, almost eerie mirror image way,
Sometimes one twin would just eat for both of them. And if you tried to separate them, they'd become almost catatonic. But then you read their diaries, and they wrote all the time, and they're filled with this white-hot rage for each other, a desperate need to be free. It's like they were two halves of one person, and those two halves were constantly at war.
Eventually, that internal war just couldn't be contained anymore. It spilled out, they dropped out of school, locked themselves away even more, and then they started lushing out. Looking for some kind of thrill, they went on a crime spree. We're talking petty theft, vandalism, and even arson. And when they got caught, the courts had no idea what to do with them, so they just slapped the label psychopathic on them and sent them to Broadmoor, one of the UK's most infamous high-security psychiatric hospitals.
And they would stay there for the next 11 years. 11 years, trapped, not just with each other, but inside the system itself. Which brings us right back to where we started, back to 1993, back to Jennifer's completely baffling death on the exact day they were finally supposed to be free. So let's ask the question again. If there was no medical reason, no drugs, no foul play, what on earth could be powerful enough to just stop a healthy 29-year-old's heart? The answer is as simple as it is absolutely horrifying. Her death wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mystery illness. It was a decision. Remember that quote? "I'm going to die. We've decided." Jennifer actually said that to a journalist who had befriended them right before they left Broadmoor. You see, they had come to a conclusion. Their bond was so powerful and so toxic that the only way for one of them to ever be truly free was for the other one to die. And after Jennifer died, June confirmed it. She didn't talk about it like a tragedy. She talked about it like a sacrifice. They were just worn out, war-weary from their lifelong battle against each other, and so Jennifer agreed. She would be the one to die so that June could finally, truly live. In their minds, it was the only way to end the war. And that just leaves us with this really profound and honestly pretty disturbing question, doesn't it? Can two people become so tangled up in each other's lives that the only path to a single free life is through death?